What's up, everybody? Welcome back again. This is episode 69 of the Andrewcast, and I'm here with the amazing Mario Zucca. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
All right.
You got it.
People always slip up with Italian names. My name is Arcangeli, and literally everybody I meet says Arcangeli or Archangel. They just don't get it right. I don't know what it is, man.
With me, it's either Mario or Zucca. That's like the
Zucca?
Zucca. Yeah, I get Zucca a lot.
Was that a high school thing, or is that still now people say that?
I still get. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not that common. Like, there's Danny Zuko from the Grease movies.
Yeah,
I think that's the only reason people know. Or I get Zuko a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was mentioning you to somebody and I slipped into Zuko. I was like, Mario Zucca. And my dad was like, did you mean Zuko or Zucca? Because he's really Italian. I was like, Zucca, my bad. So yeah, even I make mistakes sometimes. But yeah, we were talking about Brian. He's the guy who made Gritty, and it's interesting that you see this mascot, and he's huge now. I think he's the biggest mascot in sports. And you don't ever think about the guy that drew him. He old school Jim Henson sat down and made a design for this guy, and it's pretty
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
Did he bring any sketches or?
Yes. So what happened is there's a mascot company. They're the same people that made the Philly Fanatic. They asked him to make a few sketches, and they wanted something that was I believe the description that the mascot director said is, you want something that kids think is cute, but kids won't want to hug.
They nailed it.
Right, exactly. So that's the drawing he gave them was this, I guess, Sesame Street-esque sort of monster, and so, they went with that.
So it was the people that did the Fanatic.
Yeah.
Because I heard that the person who designed it was the person who did the Fanatic, but then I heard that maybe that's not entirely true. So It sounds like he worked with.
Yeah, he worked with the company. So to break it down, the guy who was the first Philly Fanatic, when he stopped being the Philly Fanatic, because there's, spoiler alert, there's 3 Philly Fanatic actors over time. I think now maybe 4. The very first actor, once he stopped with that role, he started his own company, and it was a mascot creation company. So the guy who designed the guy who was Philly Fanatic made the company that helped design Gritty, if that makes sense.
So because Philly Fanatic was the mid 70s or something,
dude, the 70s.
So he must be a little older now, and
yeah, totally. So it obviously predates Gritty, but that sort of same Jim Henson-y Sesame Street puppet design is still very prevalent in that character, which I really like, because it gives it sort of a consistency. And then you have the mascot for Union that's a little more cartoony, kind of Disney-esque.
What's the Union guy?
It's a snake.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to a bunch of Union games, but do they have a person in a suit at the?
Yeah, it's like a snake with a little almost zebra kind of mohawk, but you wouldn't really know it's a snake because the costume has arms. So I'm just why not just make him a lizard? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, trying to pull the wool over my eyes with this guy.
Although if they don't give him arms, he'd probably have a hard time. He'd just lay there, wriggle around.
Yeah, or you just have prop people that pick up stuff for him, they're all in black and blending in, man. But it's great to have you on the show, and I just have to say that I've seen your artwork for a while, just in stores in Philadelphia, because I'm definitely into local art and what people are making, and I've seen a lot of your maps in stores and stuff, and one of them was given to me as a gift a while ago, and I really, really like what you do. I
appreciate that.
I'm big into completionist illustrations, where it's a group shot of a bunch of characters, or in your case, an entire area. I don't know. What
see that from
man.
Stuff up here.
Yeah, I feel you're the same way. Am I wrong? What's your favorite thing to draw? I guess as I'm asking.
Yeah, I like to do just busy scenes, just overloaded with information. I usually don't know when to stop with that. As I do more of these maps, I feel they're getting denser and denser, and I just want to keep packing more stuff in. But I don't know. I strayed away from that for a while because I think I just got kind of burnt out on working because it's really, I'm sure it's really labor intensive, and to make a piece of art, even just something that's letter size, you're looking at maybe a 30, 40 hour time commitment.
Yeah.
So for a while, I was trying to not do such busy stuff, but eventually, as I started doing the maps, especially, I started to come back to it. And I don't know. I've always been drawn to just I go back to Where's Waldo when I was a kid, like reading those books. There's something I was like, and I guess I'm not alone. Like everybody loved those books, but you're just drawn to like that being able to like work your way around the picture and find things and like, find the Easter eggs and like,
Yeah.
there's something that I've always loved about that. So
I feel like it's sprawling. So when you look at it very intensely, it's kind of going past your field of vision and you're sort of like in the picture. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're focusing on one small piece, it's so big that it's like exactly like you said, you're actually guiding yourself around the drawing. But those pieces also, I'm sure when you showed like the Philly map for the first time, people looked at you like, you made that? Like, how many looks have you got? Like, when you show your work to somebody and they're like, whoa, you did that? Like, and the classic question is probably, how long did that take? How long did that take?
Yeah,
like,
I get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
I think people react more to seeing the original drawing because then you can really see like just like the craft in it. Whereas the maps, like, I draw a little bit smaller than the maps because the Philly map I think was probably about like, maybe about that big.
Yeah.
So the print is, probably scaled up, I don't know, about 25, 30%. So I think when people see the drawing, it's actually like, it's smaller and it's even more like just anal and precise. And like, there's such tiny little marks in it that people almost like see that and are like, whoa, my God, I can't believe you did that. I remember the Philly map. That was the first one I did, the first city map I did. And I had a friend staying at the house and I was working on it and he just like, I woke up the one day, I just come down to the dining room, was sitting on the table and he's just like staring at it like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. So yeah, it's people are into it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that like, it's not an instantaneous talent, like where you can really sing or you can juggle, but it's one of those things that's like, give me a day and like, I'll show you what I can make. And I'm sure that you've had like a lot of cool stuff come out of that, but I'm actually curious about your setup. So you said it was a lot smaller. I mean, are you using a magnifying glass to hit some of these details or?
No, I mean, I've always worked pretty small. It wasn't until.
And you don't need glasses or anything.
Now I have contacts.
Oh,
but
okay. Oh.
I'm nearsighted anyway, so I can actually usually if I am inking something, I usually pop my contacts out because
Really?
Yeah, just because my eyes get a little dry. I have some lights overhead too that like it just gets a little warmer and drier around where I'm drawing, so I usually pop them out and I could see up close perfectly. So
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. As I've gotten a little bit older, I look at some of the old stuff I used to do. Like I used to work in Scratchboard. Did you ever draw on Scratchboard?
No, is that like etching? Like
yeah, it starts as like it's a white clay board, but then they spray it. You can get it pre-inked or not inked, but usually I would just get it inked. So it had like a thin coating of black India ink on top. So I would actually draw with like an X-Acto knife. So you just like
sweet.
carve away, and where you carve away turns white. So it's like it gives you that etching look.
So it's more these like shading centered pictures where you're drawing like maybe like an animal or something, like a gorilla, where you can really see texture. It's not really for line work or.
Well, I did use it. Yeah, it wasn't really for line. It was more about like building up value.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just did like really tiny little cross hatching to build up value. But I look at some of those old Scratch. I mean, some of them were like, they were tiny, and I would get so much detail packed in. And now, like, I can look back on those now and see the limitations.
Yeah.
That I have now, like being older. So I'm like, I don't know how I even made those tiny little. They're like so small. I should have brought a couple with me, but.
And now you're saying like that's when you didn't have contacts, you didn't have to worry about too much.
I still had contacts then, but it's just. I guess I have gotten a little bit more like bigger and bolder, slightly with my drawing.
Yeah.
Compared to how I used to work. I used to work really tiny, but now I work like, a little bit bigger, but it's still small. I don't know. I feel like it's less intimidating to see a piece of Bristol on my table that's like this big versus like, that big.
Yeah.
So,
and who has a table to work on something like that? Like,
yeah,
not many people. I'm sure your drawing table is, I don't know if you have like a moderate one or one of those like super big ones that tilt up and down. Like
I used to have one of those. I actually just built my own table,
sick.
I got a huge piece of that. What's it called? It's basically like Formica kind of, or like, that press board, but it's like white on both sides, so it's like really nice and smooth.
Yeah.
I just got a huge sheet of that and just put some like wooden trim around it and got some like had a guy on, I think I found him on Etsy, made some steel legs for it. But it's like about 8 feet long, and it's pretty deep. I wanted it deep enough to at least fit like a 36-inch print,
Okay.
like height wise on it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty deep and it's super long because I kind of just work, like I have my laptop and my digital stuff over here and then my inking stuff here, so I can kind of just sort of slide down the table. But yeah, I have just like a huge table.
That's sick, man.
Yeah, I built it a couple years ago and I love it because it's perfect for me. I used to have sort of like two setups. I had a big drafting table that tilted. But the tilt thing, I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't find I don't think it really helps me that much. I don't mind working on just a flat table.
I'm nowhere near the level of production that you are, but just the way that I draw, just because my whole life I've always drawn like on a flat table, I'm not used to drawing on any sort of like slant or curve. So like I can,
really?
yeah, but I don't think my best work comes from that. Like my best work really comes from bad posture, like just hunched over on a flat surface. I don't know any other way, man. I'm sure I could learn over time to do that, but like I don't even hold a pencil correctly, so I'm really dependent on that one position. So the drawing table in my room is nowhere near as fancy. It's like this really big IKEA table, and then that's it. But maybe one day I'll invest in a setup like that.
I used to get irritated with having the slant because I usually have like 5 or 6 or 8 pens going.
Same.
And I just like to set them down like on the drawing,
Yeah,
and keep them super close, but they'd be like rolling around, falling off.
yeah.
So
That's the worst, man, when you're so in and then one of your pens is missing and like you get up and you look all around you. That's happened to me so many times. So you have that set up is this your bedroom where you work, or do you have a separate room in your house where you do all your art?
So yeah, I've it's an extra bedroom in our house that I turned into my studio. So
And I'm guessing your scanner's right there. You probably have a huge scanner.
I got a scanner, another display that I use sometimes. Usually I only use it if I'm working on a map and I need to like reference like Google Maps or something else on my other display. I pretty much just use it for that. I don't use it for like anything that requires like color or anything, because it's not like a Thunderbolt display. It's just kind of like a cheap, So yeah, I have my extra display, my scanner. I just work on a laptop and with like a Intuos tablet. So I have that kind of one little section, and then I have my all my inking stuff, my cutting board, and all that on another side. So it's kind of like traditional over here, digital over here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You're not a Wacom guy or whatever they call those.
Yeah, well, it's like a Wacom Intuos tablet. It's like the cheap. It's like the middle of the road one. That's like, I don't know. I never. I guess I'm not like a big gear, like tech person.
Yeah,
so,
which is surprising me because your stuff is so clean. Like I don't mean to interrupt you, but literally I was working with Procreate today and I found out that they have an isometric setting where everything you draw is isometric. So like the perspective is always perfect. And I'm like, I look at your stuff and I'm like, dude, it's so clean. Like I can't believe it's not assisted by anything. Like that's just all your head, which is crazy to me.
Well,
the coloring's digital, obviously.
Color's digital. I mean, I work more and more. I've been gravitating toward the digital end. Like I even sketch just digitally now for almost every assignment, just because it's just quicker. I can like sketch something out. If it doesn't look right, something needs to scale, I can move something. This guy's head's too big. I can just lasso it, scale it down. I can just work so much faster that way.
Yeah.
And I've started to gravitate more toward, because normally I would sketch digitally, transfer that to traditional ink, scan, and then color digital. But now it's like some assignments, depending on what the project is, I might just do all digital.
Yeah. Because of time frame too, right? Depending on how fast the turnaround
time and yeah, just like if it depends on like the look I'm going for. Like if I want something that just has that little bit of roughness and that kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but something that like I can only really get with like a brush pen or a series of microns, I'll ink it traditionally. But yeah, more and more it's it's hard to get off the tablet because
Yeah.
it's so fast and
It's a
it's
time
so
saver, man.
Yeah.
It's a time saver. I was watching this artist series where a guy was talking about the first graphic novel that he made, and he said it took him 10 years, but it was only supposed to take him like 3 or 4 years. And the whole video was about just how artists who are good and who are talented, they have this thing about not taking shortcuts because there's a methodology that they like, you know, and they want to make what's in their head. And so they're very dedicated to doing it all by hand and, you know, making that process as long as it takes. And, you know, sometimes you'll be like on a piece just like 4 hours straight and not take a break. And he says his recommendation is that, you know, to embrace shortcuts sometimes for like massive projects. And so like that's something I'm trying to work on. But I can tell like you're somebody who you have a feeling that you're trying to get across with your art and you'll go that extra mile to do it. We know whether it's just working with hard materials or software. I feel like you're all about just the end result. And I think it
Try
shows.
to be.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I feel like good artists are like that because it's easy to just make something frivolously because people who don't know art, like clients that you have, sometimes they won't be able to tell the difference. They'll just be like, oh, like this looks great, you know, like thanks for the picture.
Yeah,
but
right.
You want to make it so that you like it too, which is such a struggle sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, usually they can't tell, or they honestly don't care that
Exactly.
much. It's like if it looks good to them, then they're happy. It doesn't
Right.
matter how you got there.
Right. But
You know?
to you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's like certain things. It's still good to get just, you know, pencil and pen to paper. Like doing the maps, I still always start traditional, a big piece of Bristol. I pencil everything in because I don't know. That's the sort of thing where it's like something about the process of building such a busy image. It's easier to like grasp, I guess, with sitting down with pencil.
Right.
But
Yeah. Whereas the computer, like, you can see the full image, but you have to like manually zoom out.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think there's something to that because, like, yeah, being
what's
able
your
to just
perspective?
always see the bigger picture easily. I think I don't know that.
I could easily see that the fact that you can't see the bigger picture on a computer would mess up your scaling. Like you would make one area like really big and then the other area is really small because you couldn't
Right.
see them both at the same time, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it messes you up.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to rewind a little bit. Like, when did you start drawing? Was it your whole life thing, or
Yeah. I've always. I mean, I can't remember not drawing.
so when you were in class, just growing up, you were just
Oh
straight up-
yeah, man. I went to CCD. I grew up in like the Catholic Church, and
Oh, dude, that's rough.
yeah. My mom she's still like every Sunday goes to mass.
That's
and,
good. Yeah.
And she didn't push it on us, but up until like 12, we had to like go to CCD and all that.
Yeah.
I was so bored. Like we got
Yeah.
these activity books, or not activity. I think I treated them like activity books, but they were like textbooks. But I filled that thing with so many drawings
Yeah.
because I would just sit there. Me and like my two buddies, we were like the outcasts of the class. We would just sit and draw whatever, like all Sunday morning. But yeah, I mean, my parents like always pushed me into art.
That's cool.
They saw that I had like a talent for it, so they like were great about just, you know, guiding me down that path. But everything from like getting me a drawing table when I was a kid to like, you know, I'd always get art supplies for like Christmas and birthdays and stuff.
That's
so
dope, man.
yeah, so it was, I mean, I just always drew. I loved just like sitting in my room when I was a kid and just, I could just sit there and draw for hours.
Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling. I always said that's rough, you know. No disrespect to Catholic schools, but I feel like drawing in class when you're young is never smiled upon, and I feel like it's especially not smiled upon in Catholic schools.
Yeah.
Dude, my whole schooling was just like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I'm taking notes. And then like they'd come over and just be like, what is this? Like I've had the classic incident where they show everybody like the picture that I'm drawing in class, like happened to me over and over again when I was a kid. And dude, I was just burning up inside because I'm like, hey man, like when are people going to stop picking on me? But like, I guess you were probably smarter than me. You were more discreet.
No, I wasn't. I think they just realized like we were lost cause. So I think my
gave up.
teachers were just like,
They gave up.
whatever. They're not being disruptive, so just let them do their
Dang,
thing.
I wish I had that environment. Everyone was in my business. What was the thing that you drew the most when you were a kid? Were you like a werewolf guy?
Drew the
Like,
most.
What was the kind of thing that you were into?
Well, I was really into I was into Marvel comics. I really love Spider-Man.
Sick, yeah.
That was like the book.
He's kind of hard to draw.
Yeah, I got pretty good at it. I used to love. Do you follow like Marvel comics at all, or
Yeah.
do you know who Eric Larson is? He did
What series did he do? Did he do
he
specifically Spider-Man?
he used to do Amazing Spider-Man, and then he started his own book, Savage Dragon. I think
What's his
that
name?
was with like Image
What's
Comics.
his name again?
Eric Larson, Eric with a K, I believe.
Let me just look up his work real quick.
I remember I loved the way he drew Spider-Man because he had these like huge, the eye things were like gigantic, and they had
Oh,
like a really
yeah.
cool shape to them.
Yeah, I think Humberto Ramos, he's like one of the newer artists for Marvel. He kind of adopted that too, where it's like the black part of the eye takes up a huge piece of the face, and then the white is kind of used for expression, where like sometimes it's open or sometimes it's like half closed.
Yeah. I think he did some of that.
I'm looking up his work right now. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there was something I just loved about the way he like, I don't know, just the energy and the way he kind of stylized figures. So yeah, I used to draw Spider-Man. I loved the Punisher too. Those were like the two books I read as a kid.
Did you like the story of the Punisher or the aesthetic? Like, what was the draw with that? Because that's an unpopular choice.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
weird.
yeah.
I think I like the story. I because I'm not like a big superhero guy. But I liked that he was kind of like an anti-superhero. Like you know, he almost like Batman, where he doesn't have any actual powers. He just has a bunch of weaponry and
Yeah, he was shaking it up for sure. Like he was definitely a change of pace. I think that's what makes him so memorable.
I went back and looked at some of those old books and like, if I were my kid, I'd have been like really troubled by seeing some of that stuff because it was like it's a pretty violent book for a kid that age. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just like the the fact that he just had like all these cool like weapons and stuff. I don't know. I was drawn to that, I guess. But
I think a lot of really great comic ideas, and as far as like characters with memorable aesthetics, a lot of that came out of the 80s, like Ninja Turtles, Transformers, like all that stuff had a really cool art style. And then today you see those same characters have movies now. It's like we've almost never, in my opinion, got past the 80s as far as like characters in American cartooning. Like that was such a great time. Like even the stuff that was coming out of Star Wars movies back then, like that was so much fun to draw, you know?
Right, yeah.
And so I was the same way. I drew a bunch of characters when I was in elementary school. For me, Sonic the Hedgehog was the big one because it was simple but just very like angular, and I just loved drawing like the spikes. Like that was my thing. I would just draw that character over and over again. So it's cool, man. I feel like when you're in school and you're bored, you just go to the same design. Like you're like, all right, here goes the Spider-Man mask. You're just like half listening, and like here's the arms, here's the shoulders. That's cool, man. So did you decide, obviously after a life of your parents just encouraging you to do art, you were like, I'm gonna go to art school, or was it not an automatic decision where you're like, maybe I'll do something else?
It was pretty automatic. I knew I wanted to go to school for art. I went to I'm gonna age myself here, but there used to be a thing called the Governor's School, where every summer they had a 5-week program, and when I did it, it was up in Erie, but it was like the whole state of Pennsylvania, and it was the summer before senior year in high school, and I just knew I loved drawing at that point, and I got into Governor's School. It was like kind of this like prestigious. It was tough to get in, and so I got in, and I went up there for 5-week. Program, and then one of my teachers there was a design student at Tyler, and he like talked up Tyler. He was like talking about how like I should consider graphic design. So that was the first time I thought like maybe I should do graphic design. And honestly, I didn't really even know the difference between like illustration and graphic design at the point. I just knew it was like, oh, computer art, you know. So so that's what I did. I think I only even applied to one. I applied to Tyler. I got in. I was like, you know, it was back then. It was like it's still really good design
pretty
school,
reputable, yeah.
But I think back then it was even more like kind of nationally recognized. And compared to like other design schools, the cost was like so much better. Like RISD, Savannah, they're all like so much more expensive than in-state tuition at Temple. So I was just like, Tyler, it's a perfect fit. So yeah, in like 98 I came out for undergrad, and yeah, went to school for graphic design. But pretty quickly I knew I didn't love design. I knew that illustration was more the
Right,
thing
because
I was.
design kind of has this very corporate sound to it, where it's like I'm going to be making logos and stuff, and that wasn't you, right?
Yeah, and I mean at that age, honestly, I didn't even really, like I said, I didn't really know the difference. Like I just knew it was like, I just thought of it as like computer art, or like, I think I heard the term like commercial art,
Right.
and it just seemed like a safer approach to being an artist.
More practical, yeah.
Yeah,
Or at
so
least you had like a direction.
right, and but yeah, I mean, quickly in the program as I got into like the core stuff, having to take type classes and all that, I realized very quickly I was like, I'm not into like working with type, setting type, layout stuff, just not really my strong suit. But luckily Tyler would let us do like, they let students just do an illustration book if they wanted to. They didn't offer it as a major, but they let you just like focus on that. So
As your graduating piece, kind
yeah.
of? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I left with the portfolio, just like illustration work, and that was it.
That's nice. So you knew back then when you were going through Tyler what you didn't want to do. You were like, I don't really want to do this graphic design thing. Did you know what you did want to do yet? Like, would you ever be able to call like what your present is right now? Like back then, were you thinking to yourself like, yeah, like I might just work for myself. I might just do this. Was that always the plan?
I think that was, I guess that was the plan, because, illustration, there hasn't really been like illustration studios for probably since like the 80s or maybe early 90s.
That'd be cool to work at one though, man.
Yeah, I mean, I used to hear stories about like, what was the one in New York? I had a professor that worked there. Maybe it'll come to me, but yeah, it was like, it was like going to work at a design firm, but you just went in, you had your little studio, and, they'd bring like an ad or whatever to you, and like you just made an image, and, you got like a 9-to-5 paycheck. So I don't know, it would be interesting to be in that environment as an illustrator, but,
or like they used to have places where people would hand draw movie posters. Like
yeah,
that's pretty crazy if you think about that.
Yeah.
And how good you'd have to be at drawing to do that. Like that's a
yeah, I mean, there was so much great craft back then, because it was all traditional and like
zero shortcuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like instilled in us pretty early that to be an illustrator, you pretty much had to like work for yourself. So it was kind of like I knew I wanted to do illustration, so I just sort of accepted that as like the reality of it. Like, okay, I guess I'm going to be working for myself. And I think, again, my parents, they're both tailors. They have like a shop that my mom still runs out of the house.
That's dope, man.
So I just grew up in that environment of like,
Artistry.
Just work for yourself, like just do your own, have a business, do your own thing. And
Sick.
so I don't think it was even like ever a question that I could do it.
So you were like never worried about it.
I mean, I've worried, I've had points in my career where I've been like, oh, this isn't going well. I need to get some, there's times where it's a little slow and I'm like,
I guess what I'm saying, in college, a lot of young people have anxiety about their future. Like I'm sure you had friends at Temple that like, they were like risk management or, accounting, and they had all this like what is perceived to be security. Yeah. And then you were just like, yeah, I'm going to be an artist and work for myself. Like that was it. You just confidently were like, yeah, man. Like,
I mean, like my wife, before we were married, we had just started dating. She got fired from a job, and at the time I was illustrating then. And I remember that being like an interesting moment for me, because I thought like, really, and it was very unexpected for her. So it's like, I'm working for myself. I have all these clients that I work for, and some are more regular than others.
Yeah.
But like, and again, I have slow periods and I have busier periods, but I don't think I have any less security doing what I'm doing. In fact, I might have more than some people, than somebody who works at like a job where they could just get laid off or fired out of nowhere just for like budgetary reasons, or, so it's like, I never really thought of it as like any more or less safer than a 9-to-5. What I do think about is that it is tougher, like to budget and like to plan things sometimes, because it's like, I don't necessarily know what my income is going to be next month or, next year, or I might have a really good year, I might have a down year. So that can be tough, but having a significant other who has a pretty good 9-to-5 job, that helps.
That's cool. I guess what I was getting at is a reoccurring topic on this show, which we talk about almost every episode, is people wanting to do what they want, I guess, with their life and their career, and just taking that step and, that leap of faith, essentially, to be like, this is the lifestyle I'm choosing for myself, and I'm going to make it work. Like, what would you say to anybody that's considering doing what you want to do? Like, trying to live as an artist, because a lot of people are trying to do that,
Yeah.
And dude, you're like, for me, man, what you do is amazing. Not just the art that you make, but the lifestyle that you live too is really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. I've been asked that before, and I don't really know. I think there's two schools. You could either say like you should always just like pursue your passion, but then I think there is a bit of realism that people need to have about like what their limitations maybe are, or what, their, I hate to say it, but like, what their talent level might be. Like there are some people that just, really want something, and, like I would love to be a musician, like if I could trade in artistic, I used to like
Ooh, you dabble.
fiddle around on
That's
a guitar.
Right there. I dabble.
I'm pretty terrible. But yeah, honestly, I've often thought like if I could trade my artistic talent for music talent, I probably would.
Oof.
Honestly, like I've always wanted to be. I've always thought it'd be awesome to be a musician, but I just don't have. It's just not it. Like I'm not good at it. So, but I think people gravitate to what they're good at.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I don't know. I think.
Dude, it happens one way or another. Some people run from what they're good at, but
Yeah.
like life will push them in that direction, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you have to embrace it if you want to really succeed. It's like find something that you're good at and then go into it full force. And then a lot of people say like, well, I'm not good at anything, because they're focusing on traditional talents. Like I can't sing, or I'm not a good athlete, but like maybe your talent is being really hospitable to people. Like maybe it's something that's not what we consider to be tangible. So I feel like everyone has to figure that out and then follow it,
Yeah.
And, dude, you're so right, because I mean, we could just talk about rappers right now. Like, there's a bunch of kids in Philadelphia that like want to be rappers, and that's cool, and hats off to them. But the talent thing, like you said, how good are you? Realistically, like how good are you? And how good are you willing to get? Because you may not be good now, but if you poured in enough hours into it, like you could probably be amazing. Like you just said with your old work, you probably look at your old work and go like, dang, like if I knew what I knew now, like if I had those hours under my belt back then,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's tough to really like figure out where I land on that side of the like chase your dreams thing, because
dude, you're the first person I've ever heard be this honest. Most people automatically lean into that you got to do it, like shoot for the stars kind of thing, but you're a little more grounded, and I like your response on this.
Well, I think I forget where I don't know, it was like a comedian or something, but they were talking about like how that whole mantra of like do what you love and you never work a day in your life is kind of bullshit, because like, can I swear, or is that
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, man. We're good.
But because and I think that ultimately they were like, because nobody wants to like clean toilets for a living, or like push a broom,
Do anything
but
menial,
like so in a way it kind of devalues people who are in those positions, who might be perfectly happy doing that, like doing whatever, working retail, or
Oh yeah.
So if you're looking at it like, well, if you're not doing your passion as a living, then somehow that's like lesser. I don't think that's necessarily like a healthy mindset to have,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's and again, like I am doing pretty okay. I'm like living off of drawing, and every once in a while I have to remind myself of that. If I'm doing an assignment I'm not so into, it's like I get to draw pictures for a living. It's pretty cool.
That makes me smile just hearing that. Man. Like, that's so cool.
but I went to art school with a lot of people that are not doing it now. Like most people I graduated with are, I know people that are like realtors now, and like, they have an art degree, but they went off and did other things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think when they were younger, they probably had this ideal idea that they could be an artist or be a painter or a sculptor or whatever. But things didn't work out and they ended up doing something else. But I don't think there's any like lesser value to that,
Yeah, and that's just life circumstances. Like, you never know what sort of thing gets introduced to their life after college where they're like,
right. And
maybe this isn't what I want to do.
And people change too. Like,
Yeah.
When you're 20, when I was 20, I really wanted to be able to play guitar really well. Now I'm kind of resigned to the fact that I'm not that great at guitar. So, so I sold my acoustic guitar a couple years ago because it was just sitting there,
Yeah.
So time to give up the dream.
Right. You doubled down on your strengths, which is good. But I feel like if you're confident in your ability, if you're confident in what you do, that doesn't guarantee success. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to be really skilled. But I feel like it is an anchor,
Yeah.
where you're going, okay, there's something to this. Like, I have something here. And then you just kind of build from there.
And I think largely, as I was saying, like, I think people tend to gravitate toward the thing. If you're passionate about it, you gravitate toward it.
Yeah.
And I think that, by virtue of just like the hours you put into it, makes you get better. But you can't really force that. Like, you have to be like, you have to be passionate about something. Cause I think what's the Malcolm Gladwell, like 10,000 hours rule
to mastery. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Any
I think
skill.
that's actually been debunked, but
that's so debatable. But like, I mean,
it's pretty arbitrary.
The
really.
premise rings true. It's just like in the Bible where it says you should forgive your neighbor 77 times 7 times. It's like you're putting a limitation on forgiveness. I think what Malcolm Gladwell was trying to say is that just if you do it a lot, you'll get good at it. Pretty simple formula right there. Like, no one's going to measure out 10,000 hours. If you do, you're crazy. And you probably will you probably will get good at it if you're that meticulous. But to shift topics a little bit, before we get into the whole stuff that you've accomplished and what you want to accomplish in the future, what right now, thinking about your whole library of work that you've ever made, maybe some lost pieces, maybe some pieces from the past that you don't have anymore, what's the best thing that you think you've made by like your own standard, and the most memorable one? Like, are they one and the same, or like?
Well, I tend to think that like my more recent stuff is better because I'm one of those people that I look at something I did a year ago. Like you were saying, I look at something old work and I'm just like, what was I thinking? Like, I could have done this so much better. I constantly am doing that. And I think that's a good thing. I think people should always be like
critical,
looking back and
in a healthy way.
Yeah. So that being said, I would say that, an assignment I did last year is probably like the most high profile thing I did, but it was also for me the most like personal fulfillment I got from a project. And that was the, Sheetz convenience store.
On the trucks, right?
The trucks, yeah.
Dude,
so
that looks so cool.
Thank you. I mean, that was the most fun I've had, working on a project that big. It's the biggest I've ever seen my stuff reproduced. And then also I'm originally from Western PA, so Sheetz is like everything out there. It's like the Wawa of, so, I still like just today I had somebody like from high school on Facebook send me a thing like, I saw your truck on the road today. And people take videos and they'll, if they spot one. So it's just been really cool. My parents have like loved being able to see them around town.
I'm sure, man.
So yeah, that's been really fulfilling. It was a very high profile job. It was a very well paying job too. But it was also really great because anytime I've done ad work like that, like bigger high profile stuff, it usually just like gets art directed to death. Like there's so many, you're usually working with an agency who has to answer to the client, and there's like a million people involved, and you just get like way too many cooks in the kitchen, and it just kind of takes all the fun out of the project. But with that, it was like, they pretty much just were like, here's the template. make sure the logo goes here, but everything else just do whatever. And I think they had like one or two tiny little changes for me. I think I had like Andrew Jackson was one of the people I had on it. And given all this stuff with like the Civil War, Confederate symbology, it was
Too
like
much controversy for them.
yeah. So they asked me to get rid of that. I think there was another little change, but otherwise it was like
You got it, man.
just do it. And
That's so much fun.
oh, it's great. And it's just like that's the dream. It's like I wish every project could go that smoothly because it's just like
They trust your ability. They're like, yeah,
total try. Yeah, it was awesome.
they're probably
it was
familiar
great.
with your portfolio too, and they're just like, yeah, this guy will knock it out of the park, which you did. I love the color on that one, by the way. I saw that
Thank
on
you.
Instagram. It's cool. So this is the only money question I'm going to ask you. With stuff like that, do you get checks like continuously, or they write you one big check?
Most stuff is just a flat fee.
Okay.
There is some stuff that's
Even
like,
with logos, like stuff that people are going to put on merchandise and stuff?
well, I have done a lot of logo design, but yeah, I think usually with logos it's like a upfront fee
That's interesting.
because it's assumed when you're making a logo, it's like
They own, yeah.
it's you put it on everything, like that's kind of the assumption. So usually I think people who design logos kind of charge a big upfront fee to make sure that,
Yeah, the possibilities covered.
right. I mean, the guy who did, Rand Paul, I think is the famous designer who did the IBM logo.
Yeah.
I think he did that in like maybe the early 80s, and he got paid $100,000 to do that logo. And it's like, back then that's like, it's like $1 million now.
Right.
So like,
That's a pretty.
but like how many times, like they've gotten a hell of a lot of mileage out of that.
out of that
So,
logo, yeah. That's pretty interesting.
but yeah, it's most stuff is,
Was that
is
the,
a flat fee. And you kind of negotiate at the beginning, like what the usage is going to be. And then you charge accordingly
cool?
for that. But
Yeah, that's something that hopefully, if I ever continue to grow in like a really notable scale in illustration, that I'll try and master that.
what, like just like the business end
Yeah,
of
just
things,
like,
or
just the money thing. I feel like it's hard for me to price tag art.
it is, yeah.
I feel like I lowball a lot of times just because I'm like, it's a drawing. But then most people are like, she sold that for what? And I'm like, I sold it for this. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm just like, well, like it was a friend. And they're just like, no, like why you spend so much time on that? But
Yeah.
to me, like in my head, I can't get it out. Like it's just a drawing, like, and shouldn't cost this much. So I'm trying to, as I get better, as I'm like migrating to digital almost fully now, pricing my stuff up a little bit. So yeah.
The best piece of advice that anyone ever gave me was, the illustrator told me when I was in grad school, to when you sell a piece of art, you're not selling your time. You're selling the rights to use that art.
Yeah.
And that's like I've carried that with me through my whole career. Cause ever since he sort of like elocuted that, I was like, that makes total sense. Like, cause I used to think about it that way. Like it's going to take me 8 hours, so I should charge this, but it's not the work that goes in. It's what the people are going to get on the receiving end of it. What are they getting out of it? And that's kind of where the value comes from.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. That way you can be realistic with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that the most memorable piece you've ever made? Like
The sheets thing?
The
or?
sheets thing, yeah, to go back to that. Is that the one that like you look at like, wow, like that was really cool? Or is there one that you can think of in your past like, wow, I can't believe I made that. Like that was pretty interesting.
Of course, now I'm like totally drawing a blank.
Bro, I'm asking you a really hard question, by the way, because you've probably drawn a billion things. If I've drawn like,
it's tough to go back in the catalog.
Yeah.
I'm like, what did I draw that really stands out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, memorable. I mean, honestly, doing the Philly map was like the first city map I did, and I think that always stands out to me as like that felt kind of like a benchmark sort of project because that led to doing so many other city maps and and I learned so much about just doing imagery, that type of imagery with that one. So yeah, I'd say it's probably maybe between the Philly map or the sheets graphics. Cool. Yeah. What's
the thing that you least like when you look at your portfolio, the stuff that you made? Like, I did not enjoy making this. If it's for a client, you don't have to say it. but like you just look at it and you're just like, ugh, like why did I draw this? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, there's well, we were just talking about when a client trusts you, it's great. When a client doesn't trust you, it's the worst because it's like,
They're overlording over you and
Yeah.
micromanaging your art, and you're like, ugh.
yeah, I mean, there's nothing that really stands out, but I could go through my portfolio and be like, and think of my interactions with that client with each, honestly, I mean, I could tell you if we went through, I could probably tell you like each one. But when they basically just like have the idea and they're just so rigid with that idea and they basically just want a set of hands to draw their idea
Yeah.
and they're not even open to like the possibility of maybe something else. That's usually the worst thing because it's just like,
You're going back and forth with sketches, I'm guessing, where you're like, how about this? And they're like,
yeah,
we're looking for like just a little bit more like that. And then you draw it again. They're like, just kind of like this. And you're like, gosh, like,
and then the worst is when they do their own sketch and are like, just do it like this. And it's like, all right, yeah.
oh man, that must be so frustrating.
Yeah,
And
when
then you're
they
just like, why didn't you just draw it yourself then?
yeah, if that's what you wanted, then just take a few hours and ink your sketch.
Oh man.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, and you know, every art director's different. Some are like totally wide open to just any ideas. I think the best is when an art director is like, here's what we're thinking, but we're open to whatever you might want to try.
Right.
So they give you some direction, but they also leave the door open to, and oftentimes they end up, you'll present their idea and maybe two other ideas.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they'll probably just go with their original idea, but at least they're like, at least they're open to like hearing some different stuff. So
Totally. And I feel like if somebody hires you based off your portfolio, they trust that you spend a lot more time in that world than they do, and as far as making things goes. Maybe if they're an art director, obviously they're very familiar with imagery and the sort of style that their brand requires, but they know that you are the creative. So they're like, let the creative be creative. Like, let him make what he thinks is appropriate. I always feel like that's the right response.
Right. And unfortunately, there's a lot of times where that isn't the case.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Especially in editorial work, it's like I can't tell you how many times, like I'll do something, the art director will be like, this is great, I love it.
Talking
I
about
just got
a magazine or a newspaper.
Yeah. Like, usually just like, magazines. 'Cause I don't know if there ever was a time where the art director actually had the final say, or if it always was set up that the editor kind of had the final say on things. But in this day and age, it's always like, I'll do something, the art director will be like, this is great. And then she'll be like, I just have to run it by my editor. And then the editor, who's like not a visual person at all, will be like, nah, I don't think this is good. And it's like, here you have two visual people that are like, they do creative for their living, saying this is good, and you have a person who's not visual saying it's not. Maybe you should defer to the
one that
I mean, I don't want to sound snobby or anything, but like maybe the two visual people who do that every day,
dude,
maybe you could take their
I agree, man. And not just with art, I edit, and it's the same thing. Like sometimes when you're working for a client and you're editing something, they don't really have an artistic mind or a storytelling mind, and they kind of be like, well, why is this like that? Why is that like this? And it's just like, well, that's how it flows. It works better that way. And they're just like, no, make it like this. And then you make it that way, and that it's not good. It's not good.
It's the worst.
And then you're just like, okay, this is what you want though, right? And you're almost like ashamed to put your name on it. But like, because if anyone called you on it, you'd say, well, this is what that person wanted. Like, obviously, this is what I drew. This is what they wanted.
Right. I mean, there have been times where I've done something, I've done a sketch, and then the client didn't like it, and I end up doing what they want, but then I'll just go back and do my version just for myself and put that version in my portfolio. Cause
see, that's an obsessive behavior. I feel like I'm the same way though, man. Like I'd be like, oh, like I just wanted to draw the face like this. Like, it would look so much better.
So, make them happy and then go back and do it for yourself,
just for yourself.
Honestly, I mean, that's, I think it's a good way to at least like stay sane in those situations.
Totally. So what do you use for portfolio? Do you use Behance? I know it's a very popular one.
Yeah, I'm on Behance.
A DeviantArt or?
I don't know. I've never done DeviantArt.
That was like born from like some like furry, like people doing like furry art and all
Really?
that stuff. Yeah, that's what I heard recently.
Are
Like it
you
wasn't even, huh?
are you on there? Sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
mean
totally every day. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. No shame if that's your thing, but like, dude, I heard like that's how it originated recently. I always thought it was just like and a place for you to go look at internet art, but it started with people making like furry art, and yeah, it's cool if that's your thing. But,
Huh.
yeah,
But I mean, it still is like fan art, right? Like, because honestly, I've probably been on DeviantArt like twice in my life.
most of it is, man, but yeah, I guess it's more like video gamey, kind of like nerd culture art. I always thought that it was just like a kind of just a haven for people to post their illustrations and stuff, and but there's no
Yeah.
like content moderation. Like there's some of it's just like straight up just like pictures copied from like almost scrapbook type images.
Right.
But yeah, man, that just a side note. So you're not on DeviantArt. That's
Not on
yeah.
DeviantArt. I do Behance. I have a Dribble
I don't know what
page.
that is.
It's like DRIBBBLE. It's weird. It started like it still has like a basketball theme. So like when you upload work, they call it taking a shot.
Ooh,
And it's yeah.
nice.
I think like if somebody comments, it's like an assist or something. It's all like basketball terms. But it's actually I signed up or it was an invite only thing when I got on. I think it still might be. And I didn't use it for years, like probably at least 2 years. I didn't put anything on there. And then just recently I started just updating like my Behance and my Dribble and all this stuff.
Cool.
And it's cool. I've actually gotten a lot of engagement on there, and I actually just got some work from stuff I was throwing up on Dribble. So
Very cool.
people still go on there.
I gotta check that out.
But yeah, and then Instagram.
That's the big one, man, right? That's probably where you get most of your like commissions, right?
Honestly, I don't know anybody that's ever contacted me and said like specifically. I'm sure people have seen stuff I put on there, but nobody's ever said specifically like, oh, I saw this on Instagram. And but it's definitely the one that I get the most. Yeah, I have the most followers on Instagram of anything, and I mean, it just makes sense. It's like a visual platform,
Yeah.
It makes way more sense than like Twitter or Facebook now. So, yeah, and I still have like a Facebook and Twitter feed, but honestly, I hardly put anything on Facebook ever since they like changed the algorithms that you have to like boost stuff for anyone to see it.
Yeah.
It's like that became kind of a waste of time. And then
Facebook is kind of like the boardwalk to me right now. Like that's what it is. Just like a whole bunch of like airbrush t-shirt shops and like cheap pizza, and it's like, oh gosh, like this is so much. Right
pretty
now.
intelligent. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go on Facebook much anymore. It's like if I'm really bored and I'm having lunch or something, I need to just like kill 5 minutes. I'll jump on there, but like I don't really put much work on there anymore.
Yeah.
And Twitter's just it's not good for like visual
No.
disciplines. I feel like it's better for like writers and like comedians and
People who have to be like super vocal.
yeah, right.
So I don't mean to talk too much about strategy because I feel like that might be boring for you. But so your Instagram is the presence because you have a ton of followers there. It's like, hey, I'm an artist. Check out my stuff. The portfolio like Behance and Dribble, that's for clients. And then your website, that's to sell products. Is that how that works? That little trifecta there, or?
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, I have two websites. I have my portfolio site, just mariozucca.com.
Oh, sick.
And then I have just mariozuccamaps.com.
To buy the map soon.
Yeah, so that's like specifically just for like map work and to buy prints of maps. And then I have an Etsy shop too that I sell prints
Cool.
on there. So it's right now it's kind of 50-50 Etsy to my just my Squarespace map website as far as like selling stuff. But my personal website really just kind of like just my online portfolio presence.
That sounds like a lot to manage. Like, does a large chunk of your day just go into like maintaining all these accounts and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say a large chunk. I mean, when I do a new assignment, I'll usually, I'll format it to go on my website. If it's something that does end up being like a print I want to sell, I'll put it up in my Etsy shop. And then, yeah, it's like Instagram. And like I was saying, I don't update Behance or link. Actually, I forgot about LinkedIn.
Right. There's so much.
There's
That's
so
that's
many.
that's my point, man. It's like, dang, you're everywhere, and
But
you
really,
have to be. You have to be though.
Yeah, but yeah, when I do a new image, I put it on my site. If it's something I really like, I'll put it on my site. I'll throw it up on Instagram, and if it's something that would make a good print, I'll put it on. I might put it up in my Etsy shop, but that's really about it. And I might, depending how busy I am, it might only be like once a week or, so, or even like every other week that I'll put something new up. So yeah, it's not too daunting, but when I do think about like all the different platforms there are, it's like, and all the ones I've signed, I'm probably forgetting like 3 or 4 other ones too,
Right.
that I just was like, oh yeah, I have like a 6-year-old, what I'm trying to think I think there are other ones. I'm blanking now.
Friendster. I got my old MySpace, man.
Are you on any other, like, just like, online portfolio
I'm trying to
sites?
minimize that, man. I have a Behance with some of my illustrations from a children's book I did a few years ago, but I haven't updated mine in a little bit. I am on Tapastic. I like Tapastic, but
Tapastic? I've
yeah,
never heard
see,
of that.
like I said, there's a million of them. Tapastic is just for people who make comics. So I have my
Okay.
comic up there, and then other people who make comics can read mine and like give instructions and stuff. And then sometimes I'll
cool.
post my stuff on Reddits where
Oh, Reddit. I forgot about Reddit.
yeah, Reddit's another one, man, where you can just get people to give advice on your art, criticism, show their art, like
Yeah, man.
So-
I discovered that with the Buffalo map that I did.
yeah. Oh, people are coming at you.
Well, I know they're like, I'm not a big Redditor. Is that what they're called?
Dude, maybe.
I'm gonna start sounding super old now.
No, I would call them the same thing, honestly.
Redditors. But yeah, but I did try to like familiarize myself with the kind of like the rules of
Yeah.
and the etiquette on
Dude,
Reddit.
they could be very anal on that website.
Yeah, I mean, I started putting the maps up on, like, I did the Buffalo one, and I think, so back then I was trying to, I didn't want to make it look like an ad, so I made a Reddit handle that was just like a random name, and I put it up like, hey, check out this cool map of Buffalo somebody did.
Hey.
And then, but it was great because I started to get all this feedback. Like, people, I put it in the Buffalo subreddit, and everybody was just like, oh, this is all wrong. Like, why is this over here? And how does he not have this in there? So I realized, like, oh, I can actually just put it up and not have to pretend it's not me, but just put it up, not under the guise of like, hey, check this out, you want to buy a print? But more like, hey, I did this picture. I'd love your feedback, kind of like you were saying. And so I did that with Kansas City. I didn't like pretend like it wasn't mine. I said like, I made this. I'd love your feedback. And I got like so much good feedback.
Yeah.
And some of it's like really pretty brutal, brutally honest. And I ended up making like something like 25 edits
Oh, cool.
to the map just based on like feedback I got
Did
right
you
off
show
of Reddit.
the new version to that same subreddit and be like, yo, this is it? Or no, because then the criticism would probably never end if you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I put like an initial version up, and then got all this feedback over the next like few days, and I logged it all and started to change stuff. But in the meantime, somebody or a couple people, I think, like reposted it on like Facebook or some other site. And then it ended up going, I mean, it did go viral, but like, it got shared a couple thousand times and like, but then I was like, oh no, that's the old crappy version. Like, that's the unedited one. But then that one got like spread all over. So then I was kind of like, well, I have the new version on my site and on in my shop. And honestly, probably, there's such small little edits. Anybody would look at it and not even be able to tell that it's different. But
just looking at the overall thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the main drive of it's still the same. It's just there's little like, couple little shops that I added, or, a couple phrasing of things that I changed a little bit. But yeah, so.
But good on you, man, for learning and being savvy like that. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't think about that.
Reddit, I'm glad I discovered it because it's been a really good tool for, and I'm working on a Detroit one now, and I actually posted in there before I even, I don't even have it inked yet, saying like, hey, I'm doing this map of Detroit. Can you guys give me some suggestions? And I got all these great suggestions of things to include. So yeah, Reddit's been great. People are very active on there. So
100%. Like, I feel like if you're about to tackle anything, you can go on Reddit. Like, if you're about to go to Madrid, you can go to like a Spain Reddit and be like, yo, like, what should I do? And people just pop up and tell you what to do, what to expect. It's amazing, man. Like, it's a huge tool. But yeah, there's some jerks on there, a lot. Especially like, I feel like in the fandom Reddits, like if you're a fan of a show and you're like, yeah, what about this theory? People are like, bro, that'll never happen, dude. Like, that's just so stupid. It's like, all right, man. I mean, I was just trying to have fun. So is that something that you're tackling over a period of time, illustrating all great American cities? Or are we going to go international? Like, this is obviously a series that you're doing right now, and this is for you. This isn't for like a client or anything.
Yeah, this is all just sorry.
No, you're cool.
This is all just my own little side projects. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many more I'll do. They're a big time investment.
That's what I was gonna say.
I mean, I've had Detroit on my desk now for way too long, because it's just like, I get to it when I'm between jobs, or like things are kind of dead. I'll just work on it for a little bit.
Well, you got to research too, because you don't live there, right? So you probably just Google all the spots and just be like, okay, I got to put this there, and then you bring them up on the display like you said, and then you have to reference every building individually, right? So
yeah, and that part is getting. I actually really enjoy the research part of it, but that part's getting more and more time intensive as the less I know about a city, of course, because, with Philly, it was just kind of like, just draw it. I know all the landmarks, but in Pittsburgh too. But yeah, and then it was like, okay, I did Portland, and I kind of knew Portland because I spent like a summer there. But then, Buffalo was like, I don't know anything about, I know the Sabres, the Bills. I know there's wings that come from there.
Right.
That's about it.
I know Buffalo wings.
I know Niagara Falls is like close by. So, but yeah, so the research end is pretty time consuming. And so, yeah, Detroit's been, I started Detroit, last summer I started before last summer was the illustration conference was in Detroit. And I had this grand plan. I was going to do this.
Hold on real quick. I don't want to derail that. What is that? Is that a convention just for people who draw?
Yeah. It's called Icon. Wow. And I've missed the last couple. It's every 2 years, every other summer. And they do it in a different location every time.
You get a table there and you sell stuff?
Well, yeah. So they have a road show. They call it the road show. And it's basically just like a craft fair sort of thing. Like Sick. You could sell your stuff.
Thank you, man. I'm gonna look that up.
You should. Yeah. It's a conference, so it's pretty expensive. It's like, probably $500-600, but, and then also getting to wherever it's at. This coming one next year is in Kansas City.
Wow.
Which is cool, because I actually drew Kansas City, and I might try to do a table there, but, but my plan was last summer, it was in Detroit, and I was like, I'm going to finish the Detroit map, bring a bunch of prints out, get a table, try to fund like the whole trip out there by selling prints. That was last summer when I was hoping to have it done, and I still haven't finished inking it this summer. So it's been sitting on my table for a long time, and it's like about halfway inked now, maybe a little bit more, but it's going very slow. So, yeah, I don't know. I would love to keep going with them, but it's also like, how much time do I have to do them,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people be like, oh, can you draw Seattle or San Francisco, or, and it's like, it's tough, because it's like, well, maybe in like 5 years I'll get around.
I was gonna say, you say that so frivolously. Like, oh yeah, this weekend I'll do it up, man. It'll be great. I'll just stay in and draw the whole thing.
I do find that the smaller the smaller cities tend to do better. Yeah. Because like my best selling one has been Pittsburgh. Second's probably been Buffalo. And I think there's just something about that, like, small towns that sort of get shit on a little bit, and like, the underdog kind of blue collar
people start to get. Because
So I was actually thinking I might do Baltimore after Detroit, but I'm kind of debating. I I don't really know.
It's your stuff. You get to do what you feel. I mean, that's the beautiful thing. And you could always take a break from it and come back. I think I saw on your Instagram, forgive me if it was someone else's, were you doing headshots of characters from The Wire, I think it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I mean, that was another just side project. I was going to take all those and like try to lay them out in a big poster.
Oh, man.
And I had, are you a Wire fan?
No, but I like I said before, I'm such a completionist. Me, Sopranos is my favorite, always will be. But you're such like a completionist. Like, I want to have all the characters, like all the things in the city. Like, again, I told you, group shot drawings are my favorite, so that would be really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the plan to do all, like I did something like 100 different characters, and then I think I drew like 30 different locations that were integral to the storylines. And I had this big plan. I was going to like show all the locations, and I had this big map of Baltimore in the center. I had it all laid out in my head, but then as I was trying to do it in practice, it was like, this is just too overwhelming. And so I ended up not doing anything with it. But then I was like, I have all these little drawings that are kind of fun. So I just started posting them on Instagram.
They were cool, yeah. I mean, I've seen a few episodes of the show, so I recognize some of the characters, but I was like, yeah, this is really dope.
It's a good show. I'm actually just rewatching it now.
My roommate is too, yeah. He's rewatching the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to Baltimore in 2 weekends with an old buddy from Pittsburgh.
Cool.
Every summer we try to go to every summer. This is the second summer we've done it, but like go to a different ballpark. So we're gonna go check out an Orioles game, and
sick.
But I was like, I should rewatch The Wire just to like, get in the spirit.
I do that. It's definitely an iconic show. One of these days I'm gonna get around to watching it in full, but
it's good.
Yeah.
It's not a like I tried to make my wife watch it like so many times, and she's just like, I'm just not into it. And I refuse to accept that anybody couldn't like The Wire,
and she's given this answer multiple times. So you're just hoping that over time is going to change.
Well, she falls asleep during shows, so then like I'll watch 2 episodes in after she falls asleep.
Yeah,
and then it's like, do you want to go back and watch? And she'll be like, I feel bad, you've already watched. And then like I'll rewatch the same 2 episodes again, and it's like,
you want to peer in the things that you like, man. I'm the same way with anime. I'm like, trust me, it gets good. Like, it's just 2 episodes and people are already like, I don't know, man. Can't do this. It's a big commitment.
Yeah. It's one of those shows that doesn't like, it's not going to just like pull you in. You're going to be like, like just have to binge watch it. It's like, it's kind of like a slow burn. Like it's almost like half a season. You start to be like, oh, this is like really good and like really realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's ruined any other like crime, like law, police drama that I've ever seen.
Yeah, the big pull. A lot of people really talk about the realism behind that show.
Yeah, and it's a little dated now, but it still holds up. So I recommend it.
A few more questions because it's almost 8:30 and I want to get you out of here. Real quick, the whole maps thing, is that because you like to travel, or is that because of the searching imagery, whatever that's called, Where's Waldo type of aesthetic? Why maps?
I think a couple reasons. So yeah, I do like to travel as much as I can. I like working with typography, and I think that goes back to like design school. I think I did at some point realize like I actually do kind of like type, but I think like hand drawn type. But we were talking earlier about like sometimes it's hard to really find your passion, and I've always known I'd like to draw, but it took me a long time to realize that what I actually really like is taking all this information and all these like data points and visualizing them and organizing them. And like I was saying, I like the research end of the process, and the like researching places and plotting them and figuring out a way to like organize them in a way that's like pleasing. That it took me, 12 years almost into my career to realize like that's something that I actually really, really enjoy, almost just as much as like sitting down with the pen and drawing it.
Yeah.
It's like the process of like designing it and organizing it is what I really like about it. So
yeah, see, I'm trying to get more like that, because for me, my favorite things to draw are just the stuff where I don't even have to reference a lot, because it just comes so naturally and it's just so quick. And I feel like that's a much more disciplined endeavor to take up, you know, because it really is time consuming. Like we've talked about, that's probably like the theme of the show right now. Art is time consuming. It takes a long time, but like that really is, people don't understand. Like that's a lot. But see, you enjoy learning, which is really cool, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why you were so drawn to put your illustrations on Reddit, to learn what people thought, like to learn how accurate you were.
Yeah.
It seems like almost you're kind of like an art detective in a way. Like you're trying to put together like a case, man. You're trying to, all right, here's an area. I'm going to put this thing together. I'm going to use all these clues I have on the internet and make this image of a place that I don't frequent, or maybe I've never even been to. Like, I think that's a really cool thing. I can see why you're drawn to it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, thanks. It's yeah, I think the representing a place as if, not as if you're a local, but like trying to get as close to understanding of the essence of a place. I mean, I actually think I call them maps, but they're really not even maps. Like, you saw the Philly one. It's not, you can't like hold it out and not find a way.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, but I think about it. It's almost like a portrait. It's like a portrait of a place to me. Like,
yeah.
So it's like, it's
that's
like
such a nice way of saying it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
It's a portrait of a place.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's, and it's kind of taking everything I love about design and typography and maps is like a good outlet for all that stuff that I like, the organizing, the type, so I think it just took till I decided to sit down and draw Philadelphia to realize like, oh, this is a great outlet for me. Like, this is a good thing to channel my interests into.
That's sick. I'm glad you found something like that. I feel
thanks.
like
Yeah,
when an artist finds something like that, it's a big deal. So that's really cool.
It's like I said, it's very time consuming, and it can be, there usually comes a point in making something like that you're just kind of like, I just want to be done with it. But once you can sort of sit back and look at it and enjoy it, it's like, it's worth it.
Yeah, my friend, I have a friend named David Green who's been on this podcast. He makes comics, and he told me, he was like, when I get done, like a page, and I look at it, like after I've lettered it and I put the effects and everything, there's no better feeling. Like just sitting back and looking at it and be like, wow, like, all right, this is what I wanted it to be. There's no better feeling, and I can relate. So I think that's really cool. So my last thing is, you kind of have to guide me through this. So you have your maps submitted to the Library of Congress. Am I saying that right?
No, the Philadelphia Library.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really sick. So what happened with that? What was going on?
So I didn't even know they have like a big map collection. Like I guess it's probably a lot of old, like, older antique maps and things. And I actually still haven't been down there to check it out, but the woman who runs the specifically the map collection at the library, she reached out probably a couple months ago. Her name's Megan McCall, and she was just like, I love your work, and I think it'd be great to add to our collection. She wanted to know about pricing, so I wound up selling them the Philly map and then the national parks map I did.
Yeah, I saw that was the Instagram post. You had the two of them, and there was the caption. Yeah, it was a while ago since I read it, though.
Yeah, it was, I think it was like a few weeks ago, I think, that I actually sent them the map. So, but yeah, I've since heard from her, and they're in the collection now. And so yeah, I need to get down there and check it out and
so they're on display then. There's a place where you can see all these, or is that just like for their records?
So it's for their records, but I think they are also having a show. She didn't really know the details out of that, but she did mention there was going to be some sort of like a show that people can actually go and see the collection. But I think that's probably just temporary. And then I think, it'll just sort of go in their archives.
That's really cool, man. That's just like, I don't know. I feel like that's every artist's goal, is to have something that supersedes them, right? Like, not to get too deep and talk about like.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's an honor to even have them ask to include it. It's like,
it's not like you submitted it. They're just like, dang, this is dope. Like,
yeah, I mean,
so cool.
and it's it's like to have it involved with any sort of institution is like, I guess it makes you feel like a little more legitimized. And
Dude, totally.
I guess it's probably like the illustrator's equivalent of like, seeing like a painting in the Met or something. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big, but it's like,
I mean, it's pretty big though, man. Like,
I mean, illustrators don't tend to get stuff in like, museums. Some do, I guess, but so it's as close as I'll probably ever come to like being,
don't limit yourself. You have a lot more in you, man. And this is the last question that leads perfectly into this last question. Do you have an ultimate goal or like a chief aim when it comes to your art? Like, is there an accomplishment that you are out to get, or are you just riding this thing out? Are you just making what you want to make and you don't really have anything grandiose like that? Or do you have a vision? Because, dude, by my estimation, I know I've said it like 30 times right now, you're the definition of like a successful artist. You work for yourself, you sell your own products, people hit you up for work, you don't answer to anybody except like these weird clients we were talking about that are
yeah, you always got to answer to someone, but
yeah, but pretty much, man, like you work for yourself. Like, is there anything that you're looking at, like a book with a collection of maps in it? Like, is there something in the future that you're looking at?
yeah, I do have a few projects that I like, passion projects that I would like to, and you actually hit the nail on the head. That was something that I was trying to get together. It's sort of been pushed to the back burner for a while, but I mean, honestly, seeing my work big on a truck, and I did some graphics for like Chase Bank. That was, I got to see my work on like a large scale. There's something that I really like about that, and continuing to be able to like do bigger pieces. I think that's hopefully a next step for me. So, if it's like mural projects or like, anything else where I could see it be reproduced larger, that would be great. But otherwise, yeah, kind of like you said, I mean, I just sort of like whatever comes next on my drawing table, I sit down, I do that the best I can, and I'm kind of like myopic about it. I just like the next
moment.
project,
Yeah.
next project. So, and in a way that kind of just like guides me through my career. 'Cause it's like, you don't really know what's going to come up next. You can't, and it's really hard to predict, So it's like, I do have a few things that I would like to see, and I'm also kind of like whatever comes next. Hopefully it's just like a really fun, engaging project, and I can feel fulfilled.
That's sick. You're just looking to be fulfilled.
Yeah,
I like
that's it,
that.
man. That's it.
Dang, this has been a very eye-opening podcast for me, but hopefully for the people who will listen to this too. Mario, it's 8:35. Thank you so much, man, for coming on. I really appreciate you coming out and being honest about like how you feel about art and the way it is and stuff like that. It's very helpful to me, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful to a lot of other creatives in general who are trying to do their thing. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. And also, I just want to say, like, I think people who like foster conversation and this sort of sense of like creative community in Philly, like I was talking about Ryan before, like, I think it's awesome, and this is a great format for it, and I hope the podcast continues to do really well, and good luck to you too, man.
Sick. Thank you, man. All right. This has been episode 69 with my man Mario. We'll see you next time. Peace.